Hello, our dear viewers, and again, welcome to the Breakfast Show. And now we'll start with a look at the major headlines of the Egyptian dailies. And to shed light on the headlines, we have with us in the studio Dr. Pacinte Fahmy, the Deputy Head of the Dastur Party and the political and economic expert. Hello, Dr. Pacinte, and thank you for being with us. Dr. Pacinte, we will start with a look at the headlines of the Egyptian dailies, and we'll start with the Al-Ahram newspaper. War is very close to Syria. The U.S. Army awaits Obama's order to attack Syria within days. How do you see this headline? Of course, all the news all over the world now is shedding light on the recent developments taking place in Syria. How do you see this?
Yes, definitely. I have been always saying that we are in a state of war. The whole region. What is happening in Syria will definitely affect, and did affect yesterday, our stock markets. It did affect the stock markets in the Gulf area. A war in Syria will disturb the area totally. So that's why most of the headlines are talking about it today and yesterday, and everybody is waiting what's going to happen. A war in Syria will change totally the map of the area, especially the economic map. So I think this is worth understanding perfectly. Everybody has to understand that war in Syria is not far away from us. It's not far away from affecting our economy specifically, which is already suffering from a lot of problems. So let's hope, all of us, that they could come to a political agreement, not to have the stability in Syria through a war.
But doctor, we have seen the UN mission visiting Syria in order to inspect the situation, and the fact that some of the, or one of the sites did use either the Bashar al-Assad's army or the Free Army did use chemical weapons, as they are saying, and that led to the killing of many of the civilians and especially children. Do you believe that the UN report would be an objective one, or it would serve the purposes of the West as usual?
No, I wouldn't accuse the UN of being biased. Also, I hope, definitely, I hope so. But on the other hand, if we're going to start hitting every country in the Middle East one by one, this will affect not only the Middle East, but the whole world.
But doctor, we have seen claims before, a few years ago, against Iraq, and accusing them of having weapons of mass destruction, and after entering Iraq, they did not find any of these lethal and chemical and nuclear weapons as they
Yes,
claimed.
definitely. I don't like the conspiracy thinking, but I would like to work with facts. Definitely the situation in Syria is drastic, whether with chemical weapons or not. The Syrian people are suffering. I think around 1 million persons had left the country, and you know, it is turning Syria into a chaos. Nobody like that. We are definitely behind the Syrian people, behind the Syrian revolution, but we wouldn't like to see Syria in a distressed situation.
Indeed.
And a war, in my personal opinion, nobody wins in a war. Everybody's a loser, and especially the people. You go into a war, I mean, you don't know when it's going to finish, who are the parties, the sale of weapons left and right, and then the people are the ones who really pay the price. So I would hope that perhaps through the coming few days they could come up with a decision. Perhaps Bashar al-Assad could make up his mind and take a tough decision and leave, because we cannot continue like this.
Doctor, do you expect if they are going to attack Syria, that this will take place soon? And if they are going to attack Syria, would this be only from the sky, from their naval bases in the region, or they could go with ground troops?
Well, no matter how it's going to be done, it's going to destroy the place. No matter. Anyway,
and will have
so we don't
severe
want to
repercussions
go,
on the whole
exactly,
region.
we don't want to. Yesterday, only with the threat of attacking the area, all stock markets in the area collapsed. In Egypt, in the Gulf, the economic situation will worsen. You see, if you have war in the area, the transport of goods through Suez Canal or other area will be affected. The airline will be affected. So it is a drastic decision. It has a lot of repercussions. So I would hope that they could come up, and I would really ask
a peaceful
decision, no matter how much it's going to cost us. But definitely the peaceful decision will be much less expensive than any war.
Doctor, moving on to the situation on the ground in Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood Supreme Guide is accused of inciting violence and murder, killing 33 people and wounding 220 in a Nahda incident. How do you read this headline in Al Ahram newspaper as well?
I think the story is approaching to be over. And I think they should be wise enough to stop all this. And I think it has been clear that the whole people, the Egyptian people, are decided to fight terrorism, led, of course, by the army and the police. So continuing that will lead nowhere, in my opinion, to the Muslim Brotherhood. On the contrary, it will increase the hate against them. It will increase the number of protesters who do not agree to involve them in any future for Egypt. I mean, it is getting...
they would be totally excluded.
They will be totally.
Scene.
If they continue on that scenario, I think they should sit down, think properly, and even if they need to bargain about certain things, this is not the right way. Because you cannot fight, you can fight an army, you cannot fight people.
Dr. Batta, we have seen threats by the elements of the Brotherhood regarding the coming Friday, the 30th of August. We have seen threats here in Al Masri Al-Yawm newspaper. We are seeing the headline also about the plans of the Muslim Brotherhood concerning the coming Friday. Can we say that these are just threats to show their strength and they are still existing in the street, or you are expecting much more clashes or confrontations to happen next Friday?
No, I think they are unbalanced. I think they lost control over themselves. I think they're desperate. I think they understood now the story is over. So they are trying to speak loudly, but I perfectly believe that the army and the police and the Egyptian people
themselves, of
yes,
course,
are aware, and they know. I mean, when you watch them in the streets now, the Egyptian people fights them. You see, not only the police and the army.
But doctor, we don't want any more fights, even if they want to protest or going to mass protest. This could happen in a peaceful way. Why
you have no choice. No. I disagree on when people say peaceful.
But not the peacefulness. We have seen attacks, of course.
How can you be peaceful with people who are killing you left and right? Look what is happening in Kirdasa. Look what is happening in Sinai. So that story of peaceful, nice, I don't think it is the right. On the contrary, they are threatening you. You see, they are using a different language.
They are threatening the national security.
Exactly, this is the national security of Egypt. So when you threaten the national security of Egypt, being nice and kind and human, I don't think this is, in my personal opinion, a language which could be accepted. But I fully trust that we're strong enough to fight that terrorism. And I repeat always, you are fighting a war inside Egypt. It is not a war on the borders. So when you fight a war inside Egypt, it's much difficult because you affect as well other civilians. So we have to be strong, we have to be decisive, we have to apply the law against a terrorism. This is terrorism. These are not groups who are asking for any benefit for themselves.
And they do not want any reconciliation. They have rejected any calls before the stage, of course, of using violence.
We took more than 40 days to talk to them, and it proved to be
of the sit-ins, of course. Doctor, still with the Ahram newspaper, after the conspiracy that was revealed by Ahram newspaper yesterday, security experts say the failure of the plan to separate Upper Egypt is a hit against the Western countries.
Exactly.
How do you see this plan by the Western countries, as they have mentioned in Ahram, to separate the Upper Egyptian governorates from Egypt?
It's not only the Upper Egyptian governorate.
We are seeing also
Sinai,
and Kirdasa as well.
And Kirdasa. They are trying to divide Egypt, as they have done in other parts.
We have seen this in Sudan, in Palestine as well.
Exactly. They are doing it in Syria now, in Iraq, and they are trying. Okay, let them try, but it's a failure. It's going to be a failure all the time. It is different because the people, the army, and the police are in one hand.
New Alexandria Governor Tariq Al-Mahdi says that he will not allow anyone who will take an inch from the government's land, and this was in Al Ahram newspaper as well.
I appreciate his declaration. We have to tell everybody